Long before the first whistle, Iran were already fighting a battle most World Cup teams never have to face. A battle that had nothing to do with tactics, nothing to do with formations, nothing to do with football. While other teams recovered, trained, and prepared normally, Iran were living a very different reality. Crossing borders, changing locations, entering the United States only to play, then leaving again. And somehow, in the middle of all that uncertainty, they still had a World Cup match waiting for them. But football has a habit of ignoring circumstances. It doesn't care about excuses. It doesn't care about obstacles. It only cares about what happens when the whistle blows. And when Iran stepped onto the field against New Zealand, the challenge only became bigger. Because New Zealand weren't interested in anyone's difficulties. They weren't interested in anyone's story. They came to compete. And before the night was over, they would force Iran into one of the most difficult battles of the opening round. A battle that would leave one question hanging over the entire group. Did Iran rescue a point, or did New Zealand let something historic slip away? Long before kickoff, this match already felt unusual. Not because of the group, not because of the predictions, and not because of the scoreline people expected to see. It felt unusual because Iran arrived carrying more than ordinary World Cup pressure. Every tournament creates challenges. Every team faces expectations. But very few teams begin a World Cup under circumstances like these. The conversations surrounding Iran weren't only about football. They were about preparation, travel, recovery, and whether those factors would eventually become impossible to ignore. Meanwhile, New Zealand arrived with a completely different mindset. The pressure wasn't on them. The headlines weren't focused on them. Most of the attention belonged to Iran. And that can sometimes become an advantage, because teams carrying fewer expectations often play with greater freedom. They take chances, they embrace uncertainty, and they become dangerous. As kickoff approached, both teams understood the importance of the moment. This was more than a single match. This was an opportunity to shape the entire group. A victory would create momentum. A defeat would create pressure. And in World Cups, pressure has a habit of growing very quickly. Millions were watching. Millions were forming opinions. And for a few moments before the whistle, nobody knew which story was about to unfold. The story of Iran overcoming adversity, or the story of New Zealand creating one of the tournament's first major surprises. But then the ball started rolling, and the pressure Iran carried off the field suddenly followed them onto it. New Zealand looked sharp. Sharp in possession, sharp in transition, sharp in every challenge. Iran, meanwhile, looked like a team still searching for rhythm, still searching for control, still searching for stability. And for the first time all night, the questions surrounding their preparation started feeling real. The travel, the uncertainty, the constant movement. Could any team go through all of that without eventually paying a price? Then came another dangerous New Zealand attack. Another warning. Another reminder that this match was not going to follow expectations. Because New Zealand weren't playing like underdogs. They were playing like a team that believed something special was possible. And Iran could already feel the pressure beginning to grow. And only minutes later, the warning became reality. New Zealand found space. New Zealand moved forward with confidence. And suddenly, Iran were under real pressure. A dangerous attack. A quick decision. A finish that changed the entire atmosphere of the match. The ball found the net. The New Zealand supporters erupted. The stadium reacted with surprise. And just like that, Iran found themselves behind. But the goal itself wasn't the most important part. It was what the goal seemed to confirm. Because for the first time all night, the concerns surrounding Iran no longer felt theoretical. The travel, the disruption, the unusual preparation, everything suddenly felt relevant. At 1-0, there was still plenty of time. One attack could change everything. One moment could restore belief. One goal could completely reset the match. But as New Zealand celebrated, a different feeling started spreading around the game. What if this wasn't just a difficult start? What if this was the beginning of a much bigger problem? At 1-0, something uncomfortable started creeping into the match. Because for the first time all night, it felt possible that everything surrounding Iran before kickoff was finally catching up with them. The travel, the uncertainty, the constant movement. All the questions people had been asking suddenly felt a little louder. New Zealand could sense it. They continued pressing, they continued believing, and every successful challenge seemed to increase their confidence. Meanwhile, Iran kept searching for answers. They kept searching for rhythm. They kept searching for the version of themselves that many expected to see before the tournament began. For a few moments, the match felt fragile. One more New Zealand goal could change everything. One more mistake could turn pressure into panic. And that was the danger, not the scoreline, the psychology. Because World Cups are filled with talented teams, but talented teams can still lose belief. Then came the response. Not a dramatic response, not an immediate response, a patient one. Iran slowly began pushing forward. They began winning more second balls. They began spending more time in dangerous areas. And eventually, the pressure started shifting. A dangerous attack. A moment of uncertainty. A finish that brought the match back to life. The ball crossed the line. 1-1. The Iranian players erupted. The supporters found their voices again. And just like that, the entire atmosphere changed. The doubts hadn't disappeared. The challenges hadn't disappeared. But the belief had returned. Yet the story was far from over, because New Zealand weren't finished. They didn't retreat. They didn't become cautious. They continued attacking. They continued taking risks. And the longer the match continued, the more another question started growing. If New Zealand had already shocked Iran once, could they do it again? But the biggest moment of the night was still waiting to arrive. Because World Cups have a habit of testing belief more than talent. And for Iran, the test wasn't over, not even close. After fighting their way back into the match, they finally had momentum. They finally had stability. They finally looked like a team ready to take control. But New Zealand had other ideas. They continued attacking. They continued playing with freedom. And eventually, they found another breakthrough, a quick move, a dangerous opening, a finish that stunned the stadium. The ball hit the net. 2-1. New Zealand were ahead again. And suddenly, all the old questions came rushing back. The pressure, the travel, the preparation, the fatigue. For a moment, it felt like the entire night was starting to unravel. Because coming back once is difficult. Coming back twice on football's biggest stage is something else entirely. The New Zealand players could feel it. The supporters could feel it. And even neutral fans started wondering whether this might become one of the tournament's first major surprises. But that's when Iran revealed something important. They didn't panic. They didn't collapse. They didn't allow frustration to take control. Instead, they kept believing. They kept attacking. They kept searching. And eventually, that belief produced one more opportunity, one more attack, one more opening, one more chance to change the story. And this time, they didn't waste it. The equalizer finally arrived. The net moved. The Iranian players celebrated. And for the second time that night, the match had been reset. 2-2. But the scoreline only told part of the story. Because this match had become about much more than goals. It had become about resilience. The ability to respond when circumstances refuse to cooperate. The ability to keep believing when every setback creates a new question. And on this night, Iran answered plenty of questions. Not all of them, but enough. Because twice they fell behind. Twice they faced growing pressure. And twice they found a way back. That matters. Especially at a World Cup. Especially when every point can shape the future of an entire group. But there is another side to this story. And that side belongs to New Zealand. Because while Iran celebrated the comeback, New Zealand walked away wondering what might have been. They had led once. Then they led again. And for long stretches of the match, they looked capable of producing one of the tournament's biggest surprises. They played with courage. They played with confidence. Most importantly, they played without fear. And that's exactly why this result felt so unusual. Iran may have rescued a point, but New Zealand may have earned something equally valuable. Respect. The respect of opponents, the respect of supporters, and the respect of everyone watching. Because this no longer looks like a team simply participating in the World Cup. This looks like a team capable of creating real problems. Which brings us back to the biggest theme of the night. Not the goals, not the statistics, the response. Iran spent the days before this match dealing with circumstances that few World Cup teams would ever accept. Traveling, crossing borders, adjusting routines, living with uncertainty. And when the match became difficult, many people expected those challenges to finally become too much. Instead, Iran kept responding, again and again, which raises an even bigger question moving forward. Did Iran show strength by coming back twice? Or did New Zealand just reveal a weakness that future opponents will try to exploit? Because the answer to that question may shape everything that happens next in Group G. But what do you think? Did Iran prove their strength by coming back twice? Or did New Zealand send the first major warning of Group G? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoy cinematic football stories like this one, be sure to subscribe to Final Whistle for more unforgettable moments from World Cup 2026. Because while Iran searched for answers and New Zealand gained belief, the tournament is already moving forward. And trust me, this story is only getting started.